Hey there, Legal Tea listeners. This is your host, Jenny Roselle. Today's episode is a cautionary tale type of topic, a cautionary tale episode. And on these episodes, we go into real life, real client stories that I or my office have worked on, that they're usually messy, usually something messy's happened and that you should learn from. Well, today is a topic we have discussed before here on Legal Tea, but as I mentioned in my last episode, towards the end of the episode, when I always give a little sneak peek at the following week's episode, I keep having issues and mistakes with beneficiary designations land on my desk. So I guess I will keep talking about how vital it is to stay up to date on beneficiary designations to maybe lessen what keeps landing on my desk. So yeah, today we're going to be going through some stories where there have been either issues with beneficiary designations, like two of the stories we're going to talk about are like things that have happened and the beneficiary designations went really wrong. And then the third and final story we're going to talk about is some advice that a client of mine had received that I massively disagree with. So let's start with the first one, which is failure to keep beneficiary designations updated. So the story goes a little something like this. A gentleman had passed away and his sister was the executor. It was a super straightforward case at the beginning, and if I remember correctly, he had like a house, like a few small bank accounts, some personal property. But because the value of everything, we did have to open up a probate case through the probate court. And things were going well, they were smooth sailing. Then one day I got a call from the sister, and I thought it was just going to be like, hey, where are things now? How are things going? Sort of conversation. No. So I hopped on the phone and she proceeds to tell me that she received a statement in the mail for a retirement account and she just wasn't really sure what to do with it. And, I often tell the executor to forward the deceased person's mail to them because that's always kind of a easy way to find things that maybe you don't know are out there, whether it's bills or assets or whatever. Anyway, so it's a statement for a retirement account. And as you likely know, retirement accounts usually have beneficiary designations like on the account, like on the asset. So I told the sister, I was like, okay, well, you need to find out if there's a beneficiary designation on there. So give the financial institution a call and check on that for me. And then when you have that information, give me a call back. Well, back in my early days, I wasn't as cynical as I am now. At that time, I didn't really think too much about it. I just kind of hung up and moved on. A few hours later, I got a call from the sister and she says, hi, Jenny, I called the company and they said Susie Smith is on the retirement account as a beneficiary. But Susie is his ex-wife and the will doesn't leave anything to Susie. So the will just overrides that and the funds go to his kids, right? And I paused and collected my thoughts and I replied, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but the beneficiary designation, it trumps the will. So that account's going to Susie. I tell you what, that was not a fun thing to deliver. And thankfully, though, the account was only like $15,000 or something fairly minimal. But the sister proceeded to inquire kind of like, how could this be? Like, why? And I unfortunately had to explain that we are left with what her brother left us. And we can't assume that her brother did not want those funds to go to Susie. Maybe they were amicable. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. But nonetheless, in my little estate world, assuming anything is a no-no. We can't just make things up. We can't just assume. That could get her, the sister, the executor in trouble, and heck, even me in trouble. So please hear me loud and clear. Check your beneficiary designations. Check them frequently. I have seen accounts and assets go to ex-spouses and ex-partners like this story. I've seen them go to parents over children, etc. So let this cautionary tale be a lesson for you. Okay, moving on to the second story, which this one is about an unintentional conflict between the beneficiary designation and the estate planning document. So this is along the same lines as the prior cautionary tale I just shared, right? If there's ever a conflict between a beneficiary designation and the estate plan document, the beneficiary designation wins. All too often, I uncover people that think that doing estate planning like a will or a trust, just merely doing the document allows them the document just to throw on the superhero cape and clean up everything. This conversation often comes up when I first meet with a prospect or client and I'm going over what all these estate planning documents are, what they do and when they activate. It's a very natural segue when I bring up talking about a will or a trust because it's so critical that we get our assets lined up in a way to support what the will or a trust is trying to accomplish. So here's our second cautionary tale. A few years back, handful of years back, I tragically had worked on a case that involved someone that passed away that was young, in their early 40s, and she was a single mom to 2 awesome kiddos. She had actually done a will, and, just in case something were to happen to her, of course, but her biggest asset was a life insurance policy. She rented an apartment, so she didn't own a house, had a really small bank account, and so her total estate did not rise to the level of needing to go through probate. I was meeting with her mom about what to do following her daughter's passing. It was heartbreaking, to say the least, and by the end of the meeting, somehow it got worse. So I was talking to her mom about each asset, one by one. And when we got to the life insurance policy, she shared it was a term life policy and the death benefit was $1 million. Side note, term life insurance policies, even ones for $1 million, are actually fairly affordable. So I just mentioned that just because, in case that's pertinent to your little world. So anyway, I inquired, so I was talking to the mom, right? And I inquired about this $1 million term life insurance's beneficiary. Who is the named beneficiary? And the mom said, for some reason, she has me and her dad on there as 50-50 beneficiaries and not the kids on there. Her will, of course, left everything to her children. Yet again, I got to be the bearer of bad news, and I share that the life insurance policy is going to her and the girl's dad, the daughter's dad, and not through the will, which was to her kids. And that's when she laid it on me. Oh my gosh, Jenny, her dad is estranged and they have not talked and nor had any kind of relationship for 10 plus years. And guess what happened? The girl's mom, so the lady I was meeting with, she got 50%, and that's the life insurance company is only going to pay out to the life insurance beneficiaries. So the girl's mom got 50% and handed it right over to the girls' kids. The dad? Well, he claimed his 50%, and after multiple attempts to contact him, he never replied and got to pocket his 50%, which was $500,000. Meaning he didn't share it with the kids, which were his grandchildren, technically speaking. But again, there was no relationship there. I still think about this situation often, and it makes my stomach flip every single time I think about it. So finally, shifting to the third, final story here on this episode. The third one, if you remember, is not one that has happened, not a beneficiary designation that's actually gone wrong, but rather some advice a client received that I massively disagree with. So here's the story. I met with a prospective client, a husband and a wife, just a few weeks ago. And they shared that they were talking to some family members last Christmas, and the family members were talking about like, oh, you want to avoid the probate process if something happens to you, and a way to avoid it is through beneficiary designations. So they were telling me that after that conversation with family at Christmas, that they thought that they should put the wife's brother as the contingent beneficiary on their life insurance policies and retirement accounts, since the wife's brother would be guardian of their children if something happened to them. So to clarify, they would be each other's primary beneficiary, right? So the contingent beneficiary comes into play if something happens to both of them. And so because of this conversation, they have had, hopefully at this point, they have had the wife's brother designated as the contingent beneficiary. So when they shared this with me, I immediately thought to myself, oh no, that's a really bad idea. And I clearly do not have the best poker face. I know I don't. So once they saw the look on my face, I think they knew what was coming. I proceeded to explain that if something happened to them, and granted, the likelihood of something happening to both of them is slim, but is that not the whole purpose of estate planning, is to minimize risk? Yeah? Anyway, so I proceeded to explain to them that a whole host of reasons that this is a bad idea. For a whole host of reasons, this is a bad idea. So for one reason, for starters, first, say the wife's brother, that wife's brother may not actually get appointed as the kids' guardians. When you nominate someone in your estate planning documents, when you nominate a guardian in your estate plan to be guardian of the kids, the judge still has to agree with the appointment. So what if the judge disagrees and you just sent money to the person who is not even the kids' guardians? Now, another reason that's a bad idea is, okay, let's pretend the wife's brother does get appointed. And what if the brother, now gets this pile of money because something's happened to you guys, gets a little greedy and decides to say, heck with sharing with the kids, and he goes off to travel the world, or maybe goes to Vegas to put it on the roulette table. Now, I know that sounds crazy and probably unlikely to happen, but I promise you, I've seen things like this play out, even in families I would have never, ever, ever thought it would happen. And a final reason that I'll share on the reason I don't agree with this strategy, say they forgot to update the beneficiary designation. The kids get older, and then now they pass. And say the brother is actually totally fine and agreeable to actually handing the money over to the kids at the parents' passing. And say the kids are much older, and that's why he's totally fine with handing the money over. Well, guess what? Now you're going to punish him for actually being a good guy and not going to travel the world or go to Vegas, because getting the money over to the kids is going to be subject to gift tax rules. So for all of these 3 reasons, I think I just spouted off 3 reasons, and probably even more, I don't think that strategy is a good idea at all. When in reality, you can make what they're trying to do, with the whole purpose of what they were trying to do is avoid probate. You can avoid probate through estate planning devices, say like a revocable trust, without all the risk of everything I just explained. So like I said at the beginning of the episode, I am going to keep shouting from the rooftops about beneficiary designations. I hope my faithful legal tea listeners don't get annoyed with me for talking about this again. But I have to keep talking about them because they're so easy to mess up. And they're so easy to mess up from an estate planning perspective. Once I stop having so many messes like these described today land on my plate at the office, maybe that's when I'll stop shouting from the rooftops. But until then, I guess I'll just have to keep talking about it. All of these are examples that I've explained today. All of these are examples of making sure that all the professionals in your life, the estate attorney, your financial advisor, your insurance agent, your CPA, accountant, all of us are all on the same page and working together. Alrighty, it is time to wrap this episode up because I'm out of time. I try to always keep these around 15 minutes. And shifting to a sneak peek of next week. Next week will be a current trends type of episode. And I don't really know what I'm going to be talking about on that episode yet. So sometimes I don't have what the next episode is going to be about. That's what's happening right now. I don't have anything specifically planned yet, so I don't really have a sneak peek. But nonetheless, I will talk to you next week, my friends. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.